Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Metzia Daf Ayin Tes. Begin 11 lines down from the top of the Amid, where the Gemara continues with this halacha that we spoke about in the previous Mishnah regarding Haseiches HaChamor, regarding renting a donkey, and regarding responsibilities if anything happens from both parties, regarding the renter and the owner. Regarding that donkey. Turns today's daf throughout the entire world. So discussing today's daf, our Haseiches Chamor, we said in the Mishnah, if you rent a donkey and Mesa Nishbara, and the donkey dies or just it breaks, so then the owner is responsible to give him another donkey in place of that. Now the Gemara differentiates regarding if he said Chamor Stam or if he said Chamor Zeh. If he just said, I'm going to give you a donkey, okay, then he has to give him another donkey. He promised a donkey. But if he said Chamor Zeh, well, then it depends. If it then only gave responsibility for this donkey. If this dead donkey you could sell and then buy a new one and then give him that new donkey, fine. But if not, not. Now, there's a machlekes in the Gemara, there's not enough money to buy a new donkey, but you have enough money to lease, to rent a donkey. As we know, people can't buy cars. They're leasing. People don't have enough money. So if you don't have enough money to buy the donkey, but you could lease the donkey, then if is there responsibility for the owner to take the dead nevela, then lease a donkey and then give it to his renter. The next mission discusses Haseiches Hasfin. If someone rents a boat, and it sinks halfway through in the journey. Actually, it's not the Mishnah. It's just the Gemara brings it. Regarding what's the responsibilities there, and and if and there's a child in the Gemara what the word parka means regarding unloading halfway through. Again, regarding what the responsibilities are there. If someone rents a donkey to ride on it, so they both have to bring their provisions. So the renter could put on he put all of the needs that he needs for the journey on the donkey. The chamer, the donkey driver, he could only put on the soim tavin from that day only, because and more than that, the seichel can me'akav on them, and the reason for that is because he can get it in the motel where they're staying, and the Gemara will explain, well, why can't the renter also? Why could he load up on the donkey so much stuff? So begin the current daf Ayin Tes, 11 lines down from the top of the Amid. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Says Haseicher es hachamor lirkav alav. So if someone rents a donkey to ride on the donkey, umeisaloi bechatze aderech, and it died halfway through the journey. So on that says Rav, so nois loischacher shel chatze aderech. So he pays him how much it costs to rent for half of the journey. Ve'ein loy olav, and the renter doesn't have on the owner ela taraimis. Only complains that he leased him a weak donkey. That's all that he has against the owner. Says the Gemara, what's the case talking about? If he could rent another donkey right over here where the donkey died, so tarum is ma'avedet. What's the complaints? What's the time that you have a donkey right here, another new donkey to rent? If we're halfway through the journey, he's on his way from Cali to Vegas, and that road is Deadsville. There's no donkey to rent over there. So agri boy lamesably, he has to pay him. What am I paying you for? You didn't get me anywhere. So what's this that you have to pay for this halfway, and then all you have is complaints? Says the truth is that there's nothing to rent over here. But because he could tell him, had you wanted to get to here, wouldn't you have to pay to get to here? Which Taisa says, on the top Taisa says, what's a tema? Because I didn't want to come to here. So why should I pay you for the halfway journey that you took me? So that's what you can say is that this that the Gemara is saying that the that there's nowhere to rent over here. That only means that there's nowhere to rent according to the amount of how much you rented the original donkey. But if you add a little bit more, you'll find a donkey to rent. So you did benefit that you got up until here, and therefore you have to give half the wages, and the chiddush is that you don't diminish the rental of the halfway from the fact that you have to pay a little bit more right now because the owner's an einus. It's not his fault. So you do have to pay him for the halfway journey. Or Taisa says another approach is, for example, where the guy could sell his merchandise where the animal died, and he'll still make a profit. And there are many merchants that don't go all the way to where he wanted to go. They go till over here. And therefore you have to give. So although you wanted to go to there, but you could sell it in this neighborhood also. So therefore that's the halacha that Rav was talking about, that you got to pay for the halfway, and you only have complaints against the owner. But says the Gemara, wait a second. Hey Chidami, what's the case talking about? What's the question? Because what did he rent you? If he said, I am renting you a donkey, well then he has a responsibility to provide me another donkey. What's this that all I have is complaints? I want a donkey. And if he told me this donkey, so at least if the monetary value of the dead animal has likach to purchase or whatever another donkey, then yikach, let him purchase another donkey, and let me finish my journey, because he indebted to me this donkey. And the Mishnah taught, then this is how it relates back to Allah of Mishnah. In the previous Mishnah we mentioned that if a seicher has a chamor and mesa in nishbara, we said chayv lahem lechamar acher. So what's this? They only have tinus. Give me another donkey. Manavshach. If it said stam for sure, and zeh, at least take the dead one and buy a new one. Says Gemara, no, we need it b'she'im b'demel likach. We're talking about where the dead animal doesn't have enough value to purchase a new donkey, and I'm not meshubed more than zeh. Says the Gemara, but b'yesh b'demel liskar. If you have the monetary value to rent, let this guy, let the renter sell the dead animal where he is, and yiskar, let him rent another donkey for himself, because the owner was mishabed this donkey, and the Mishnah taught again, if the animal dies, he has to provide him another one. Says the Gemara, Rav l'tamei. Yeah, it's a good shaila, but this was Rav's halacha. Rav goes according to his reasoning. Dama Rabbi says, Loy mechalin on karna. We don't deplete the principle. Says Rashi, the Mishnah taught that he has to give him another donkey. That's where it died when it was still in the owner's possession, where he adds on and he purchases a donkey. That's not depleting the principle. But to sell it and to use the money to rent another one? No, Rav holds that we never said such halacha. Ditma, we learned it's a machlekes Rav and Shmuel. And this was Rav's teaching. If someone rents a donkey, it dies halfway through the journey. Rav says, if there's enough money with the dead animal to purchase a new animal, you got to purchase a new animal. Liskar, al yiskar, to rent? No, you don't take the money and rent and lease, like we know people will buy cars, not lease, because one you end up with something and one showing gigang and the principle is gone. So Rav holds that you don't rent, because that's it, you depleted the guy's principle. Rishmulam, he says, no, af liskar yiskar. It says, even to rent, if there's enough money from the dead one, you're going to rent an animal. So therefore, again, Rav is not difficult, because he said, chamor zeh, and there's not enough money to buy, you would only be able to rent, and that you're not allowed to do. Says what's the machlekes? Like we said, Rav somebody holds lemechlini karna, that when a guy leases you something, that you can use it, and he has responsibilities to provide for you, but not something that's going to deplete his principle. Ushmol somebody holds no mechlini karna. No, you could even deplete the principle. You told me this chamar is there, so whatever it takes, you got this chamar is meshubah to me, even if it's going to deplete the principle of that chamar. So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks on Rav in the following brisa. If someone went and gave a tree to his friend as a mashkin, as collateral. Now, specifically those collateral that's called mashkanta de surah, which we spoke about in the Samazayim Beis, which they write that when the years are up, then this tree will come back to me without me owing you any money, because you're using the tree, you're taking all my dates and all my fruits, whatever. So that's paying you back for the loan. And when the years of the loan are up, then I get back my tree as it is. On such a halacha, the Brisa says like this. What happens if Yavashila? What happens, again, the guy's using the tree as the security and it's paying back the loan. The tree dries up. The mashkin dries up the tree. Or gets chopped down. There's a storm. Tree comes down. Says the Brisa, Shnei Masturim Bay. Both the lender and the borrower are forbidden to chop the wood up and use it as firewood. Because if the borrower burns it up, that depletes the principle of the lender, which was the mashkin. If the lender burns it up, that depletes the principle of the loiva, who is the actual owner of the tree. So it says the Brisa Ketziyah. So what should you do? So what you should do is you lokach by karka. You should go ahead and use that broken down tree, sell it to other people. Go to Costco, go to whatever it is, and let them buy from you and sell it to someone else. You purchase a piece of land, and then the lender will eat the peiros again, which is really the equivalent of what he was doing up until now with the tree. Now he'll eat the peiros of the property. Says the Gemara. Wait a second. Over here, this field that they're going to buy with the value of the tree, the dead tree, there's a problem. What's the problem? The halacha is kibin the chimata yovel. Maybe during the years, let's say he said we're going to do this loan for 10 years, and I'll have the mashkin, and after the 10 years, the previous I would have eaten is going to pay back the amount of the loan, and then you'll get back your tree. Maybe 6 years into that 10 years of the mashkin, it's going to be yovel. If you run into yovel, the halacha is kahadra ara lamara. We know the halacha is old properties go back to the guy you bought it from when they reach the yovel year. For kukal yakarna, but that's depleting the principle, because what you just did is you took the guy's tree, which is his principle, you sold it to purchase a land. Purchasing land is essentially like renting, because once you ever come, so you don't hold on to the property and it goes back to the guy you bought it from. So it's depleting the guy's principle. The question you're probably thinking of already is, wait a second, so you should ask, forget about on Rav, you should ask on the Brisa itself, that the Brisa seems to be contradicting it. So, and the Gemara will address this and discuss it right now, but because you're worried about why you're asking on Rav, the Brisa itself is concerned with Kal Yakarna, because you tell me you can't use the wood as firewood. Okay, we'll get to that, but the other Gemara is asking this on Rav, and saying that, was haste, Rav said you cannot be Mechali Karna. Here we see it's being Mechalina Karna. You know what we're talking about over here? The Zavan Le Lashit and Shnin. When the guy bought the property because he sold the tree, he bought it for 60 years. Okay, what's 60 years? He says an interesting halacha. How do you know that someone sells his field for 60 years? Although we know there's halacha in the Torah state psukim that everything goes back in Yovel, if you sold your field for 60 years, it's not going back in Yovel. You got to wait till 60 years and then you give it back. So Taisa says, I then it's going to go back. He says, okay, that the Gemara is not considering as Machalin Karna right now. The Gemara is like, okay, this is like Shen Genig. But either way, how do you know that if you buy a field for 60 years, it's not going back? At Yovel, Shlomo says the pasuk in Vayikra. It says the source of the halacha of Shemitah, it says of Yovel, it says the land cannot be sold forever, meaning the Torah is telling you the rationale of the mitzvah of Yovel. Now, obviously, we see that Yovel only removes a property if she'ein sham Yovel, that if without Yovel, nitzmeses, it would have stayed forever, like a regular sale, like the way we do these days. So yes, sham Yovel. Now that there's Yovel, in nitzmeses not going to stay forever. Oh, Yatzuzu, that excludes this case. Sha'af she'ein sham Yovel, that even if there wouldn't be Yovel, in nitzmeses, it wouldn't stay forever because you made a time limit. You said it's only for 60 years. So Yovel doesn't apply. So Yovel would not remove it, and it's such a long period of time, like the way Taisa explained, so that wouldn't be considered as Mechalina Karna. So it's not difficult on Rav. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? So the Gemara now asks on this. So at the end of the day, but after 60 years, then the property is going to go back to the guy it was bought from. That's going to deplete the principle of the Baru. According to Rav, you shouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah, but the point was that the Malva should be able to have this mashkin for the term of the loan.
That's one thing. We also want to have that the loiva, who's the owner, he's the equivalent of what the masker is to the seicher of the donkey, that he should not lose his principle. His mashkin is... He's not getting it back. No. He's going to get it back, but it's going to be gone after 60 years.
It's a 3-year loan. He's going to...
Right, but after...
He's going to have benefit.
Right, but it's going to deplete the principle at some point. At some point, he's going to lose the original seed money. They're going to be gone.
How would the tree last anyway?
Es kann gar nicht verdeutlich. The Seide hat gepflanzt, also, the Seide Yaakov we had, yeah, Al Capone, but it's going to be Mekalina, and you say, we're not Mekalina Karna. So the Gemara says, okay, the Gemara gets out of the question, because the Gemara says it changes the presupposition. It says, we're talking about, like in our times, that we don't have Yovel, so it's loikal yikarna. So the principle is going to remain. So the Gemara says, and the Gemara says, oh, chana mistab. It's actually logical what we're saying. Because you think we were saying that it's at a time when Yabel applies, and like we thought we're asking on Rav, that we see like Shmuel, we see that we could deplete the principle. But if that's the case, that means to say the price is not concerned for Machal Yikarna. So this is the question we alluded to before. Why are you making me buy a piece of property? Let the lender chop up the wood, get some good barbecues out of it, get some good, bonfires, and fartig and gegangen. What's the point of buying a property and then being mechalin karna? If the guy can mechalin karna, let him just get his money's worth now by using it as firewood. Says Gemara, no. If that was your raya, like kash, that wouldn't be a difficulty. It's not a proof. Because zimna deshal mishnei mashkanta, sometimes it could happen that the years of the collateral, which the years that the tree was only going to be a mashkin for him, it actually completes mikmei yovel, 4 or 5 years before yovel. So those years, the loiva would still be able to eat the payers before it should go back to the owners. That there's no reason for us to make him lose that. Or inami or demati lezuzi. Sometimes he'll pay him up money. He'll redeem it from him 4 or 5 years before yovel. So the truth is that, in general, we would be mechalin the karna like Shmuel. You're saying, so then why didn't you chop it up? Because why should we cause a loss for the loiva who would be able to still have utility of it before yovel comes along? So even though we're not concerned, but why should we make the loiva lose out unnecessarily?
The tree is dead.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but the property that you're going to use, I'm saying, there's no reason for us to make him lose out those years that he could still get benefit. So although we won't stop ourselves from depleting the principle, but it's not the same thing, and therefore, it's not the same thing as just chopping up the wood and it's gone. At least let the loiva still get something out of his original principal money. Now, a related discussion, talking about within the Braisa, that hasoich es hasfina, if someone rents a boat, halfway through the journey, the boat sinks. Okay, now what? So Reb Nosson says the following halacha, which we're going to try to figure out. He says like this. It's actually a very important principle general of Choshen Mishpat when you have a claim with someone. Im Nosan, if he already paid the rental, even the whole amount, lo yitel, he can't get it back. Because as we're going to explain later on, this is the very important principle, the teveya always has the lower hand. Whoever has the money has the chazaka, and it's very hard to get money back from someone. So always keep that in mind. Doesn't mean don't pay anyone, but just realize that that's a significant factor. So if you already paid, you don't get it back. But if you didn't get paid yet, you don't have to give it. Okay, that makes sense on some level, because like we said, whoever's the muhsik in the money remains the muhsik. But the Gemara says, wait a second. Hey, what's the case talking about? As the Gemara explains. First, it goes through different options that cannot be. Now you have to keep in mind, both of them are contracting together for this rental, which means to say, there's the owner who's leasing it, and there's the renter who wants it for a specific purpose. If the owner said, I'm giving you this boat, and the renter said, I wanted to transport wine. He didn't say which wine. So we have the following question. You're telling me, Im Nasan, that if he gave the money, he can't get it back. Why can't he get it back? But the claim of the Teveya is stronger than the claim of the defendant. Why? Because Neimalei, let the renter tell the owner, Havli Svinta, give me a boat. Because you told me this boat. So if you told me this boat, it's your responsibility to provide me this boat. And I'll provide the wine. And let's take it to where we had stipulated I'm going to rent it till. Because I just said any wine. Now, since the owner of the wine could fulfill his side of the deal, so the owner of the boat has to provide him this boat. And he's not providing, so that should be his fault. His fault that he's not providing it. So why can't he get his money back? So, Ella, what are you going to say? No, besvinas tam b'yayin zeh, the exact opposite. The owner of the boat said, a boat, and the renter said, this wine. So the question is, Imloi Nasan, you told me that if he didn't give the money yet, it doesn't have to give it. So the Gemara, why? Am I Eden? Why doesn't he have to give it? As the Gemara continues, Talmud Beis. Namely, let the owner tell him, Havli ahu chamra. Give me that wine itself that you said that you wanted to bring, and I'll bring a different boat. So since the sailor, the owner of the boat, could fulfill his condition, because I didn't say this, but I said any boat. Yeah, I could bring any boat. But you said this wine. This wine is on the bottom of the ocean, so it's your fault. So then he should have to pay, even though he didn't pay. Okay, so Amar Papa says, you're right. You're not going to have the case that Reb Nosson was talking about, that it depends if he paid or not. Specifically, if he says, this boat, and this guy said, this wine. So like Rashi explains, neither one could fulfill their conditions, because they both said this, and both of these are at the bottom of the ocean. So therefore, by default, the Tevei, the one who's coming to claim, has the lower hand. Why? Because the defendant could say, I'm not stopping. When you bring yours, we'll go ahead. Because you're claiming you have the Tevei is always the one that is the Mitzi, he has the onus on him. Now, Abasvinas Tam, Yayin Tam, which in one case we didn't speak about yet. We spoke about Svinazu, Yayin Tam, we spoke about Yayin Zu and Svinas Tam, we spoke about Svinazu and Yayin Zu. But the last case, regarding if, let's say, the owner had said any boat, and the renter had said Yayin Tam and any wine, then Chalkin. Then they split it. And that is, if the owner already took all the money, he has to give back half it. And if the renter didn't give half, he has to give half. Because both of them have the ability to fulfill it, because you could do a new boat and you could do a new wine. Now, if the defendant doesn't want to give half, well then fulfill your condition, which is what you could still do. So therefore, that case, they would be chalkin, they would split it. Talmud learned a brisa related to renting a boat. If someone rents a boat, now the Gemara assumes what the case is talking about is that he rented it to go to a certain destination. We have a lot of world travelers over here. They probably know where you would take a boat to if you rented a boat, but you wanted to get to a certain place for a certain amount of money. And you got halfway through the journey, all the curious voyagers, they unload and they take off his packages halfway through. So Allah is, so you only pay him for the halfway journey. The ein loy, and the owner of the boat doesn't have a love on his passenger, ela taroimus. Only thing he has is complaints. So the Gemara says, why? Hey Chedem, what's the case talking about? If it's talking about where you could find that you could rent this boat for some other passenger, why does he have complaints? So there's another guy right over here that you could pick up. And if you can't find someone else to rent it, so cool, everybody Shloimy. What do you mean? You hired this guy, the sailor, to take you to that destination. Halfway through, you get up and say, I want this coconut island over here, and suddenly you don't have to pay him? So the Gemara says, no. The truth is, you could find other people to rent it to. So why does he have complaints? Because of the damage, the shakiness of the boat, meaning that the boat gets scratched and dented when you're taking off packages and you bring in packages. So that is, why you can have complaints. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? If that's the case, Tanos Mal Yasahu. I mean, that's a bona fide claim. He owes him money because that's damages when everyone's schlepping up their packages and they wax it into the wall of the boat. So the Gemara says, you're right, that can't be what we're talking about. Ella, rather, my parka. What do we mean when we say parka b'chatzei derech? Means the parka lo'toyane bigavei. Meaning, halfway through the journey, this traveler adds on more packages. He goes onto the island, he starts shopping, comes back, his wife goes with they spent already a few $100,000 on this. She comes back with more packages. Now, he had originally stipulated that he could put onto the boat whatever he wants to. And the payment's going to be according to however much packages and the weight it's going to be on the journey. So therefore, yeah, he pays him the wages of the addition of the load of the other half of the journey. So the Gemara says, so what's the complaint? You're going to pay for the added weight. The Gemara says, Misham Shina Daita, because of the change of understanding. I thought we're going to be able to go quickly and come back quickly. Now, because of this stop, that's like not what I thought was going to happen. That's called taraimis. That's enough for complaints, but it's not a monetary claim. Or another purchase you could say is la'ashli yiseda. He says, now I got to purchase ropes where we are over here at a higher price, because when the boat weighs down because of all these packages, so you have to go further out to the middle of the river where the water is deeper, that it shouldn't get stuck on the bottom of the lake. And you need to have these long ropes. You didn't tell me about this beforehand, that I should have prepared the ropes that are necessary. Now I got to pay a higher price. Again, that's not really a monetary loss, but there is a complaint that now I got to spend more money on these ropes, and therefore that's why he's going to have taremis. Another halacha, Tanabam in the Braisa, Haseches Achamar Lirkabalev. Someone rents a donkey to ride on it. So he's getting a ride. He's going to his destination. So the renter could put on the donkey ksusai, his garment, b'legnusai, or the gear says kisses, like Tezbings from Ben Hananel, as like a pillow. But be the man b'legnusai, his pitcher, mazaynaisav, and his food, shalei saderech, of that whole journey. More than that, chamar ma'akabalav. Some say, do me a favor, you're going to Eretz Yisrael, do me a favor, take a package. That already could stop him. He could say, no, you can't. Whatever you need for the journey, you could take, but more than that, you can't take. Now the chamar, the donkey driver, manichalav, he could put on it the barley, and then the straw, and the food of that day, not of the whole journey. More than that, the renter could say, hey, I don't want you to be schlepping the pilot. I don't want you to have so much food over here. You could have just for one day. Because he hey, wait, what's the case talking about? Manavshach. If it's a case where you could find food on the way, then the donkey driver should also hold back the renter not to let him put on more than food of one day, because you can get on the way. Why should I let you go and weaken my animal? If you can't find along that whole journey, so the renter shouldn't stop the chamar. Why does he have 1 day's worth of food if you're not going to have food for the whole 10-day trip? So my papa says, no, it's necessary to shriach lemitzrach. No, it's common to put an effort, ulemizvin, you could buy me'avna la'avna, from one motel to another motel. If you really put in the effort, you'll be able to find it. So chamar darchi lemitzrach, the donkey driver, yeah. The truck drivers, they know how to go and ask in town who's selling food. They rough it, they can find. So they go ahead and lemizvin when they buy. So if he can only take for 1 day's worth, because he'll get when he makes the pit stop. Soicher, a renter, this delicate guy who's like, he can't even drive a donkey himself. He has to have someone driving him. Lav darchi lemitzrach lemizvin. It's not his norm to go and put in the effort and stop buying, and therefore he can take food for the whole journey. A Bryce again, continue on this theme of Aseicher Esachamor. Someone rents a donkey, Lirkav Alal Ish, because he rented it to carry a man. It's an interesting halacha, Lirkav Alal Isha. He may not use it to rent for a woman. So, I'm not sure what Art School says, but on my slides it says, because a woman's weight is not as well distributed, because of the way she sits, and she feels heavier on the animal. So if you rent it for a male, you can't use the donkey. It's the same thing for a female, which is interesting. That
it's possible she sits on one side.
Right, that's how women would ride, side saddle, whatever. That, but
yeah, to keep on adjusting.
Oh, trying to throw in with the. No, what do you mean? Adjusting meaning what? That
she doesn't move correctly.
Oh, doesn't know how to ride the animal, right? So that causes the animal to. So you can't. There's the gender differences over here. That Al Capone, you can't use it for a woman. Ish. If it's rented for a woman, then you could use it for a man. And again, because a man definitely would not be as he weighs his weight well, and therefore it's less of a strain on the animal. Now the Isha, let's say you came to the rental company and you said, yes, it's for a woman, then you could ride in it any woman that you want. Ben gedol, ben ketana, whether a large woman or a small woman. Afilu muberes, even if she's pregnant. Afilu benika, even a nursing woman with her baby. Any woman could go ahead and use this animal. So this is the Gemara. Wait a second. Hashtem benika, and this is a machlokes. Rashi tells you how to read this, but Rashi says that if a nursing woman that's two bodies, and the child is heavy, Amrit, you said that she could ride with her child. So Moberes, a pregnant woman that's one body, Mibai, you have to tell me this? Of course. My puppy says, no, Moberes, the Menika Kama. So she's trying, this is a Mishpucha Baruch Hashem, Chapterain, that she's still nursing and she's pregnant already. That's a chiddush that even such a woman could go ahead and use the animal. So Abai says, Shema Mina, what we hear from this, from the fact that it says, even the Muberes, which sounds like that a pregnant woman is heavier than a non-pregnant woman, which just goes into the discussion that Taisus talks about that, but that when you're heavy because of pregnancy, you're actually heavier than a heavy woman because the fetus is actually very heavy. And that actually goes into what the Gemara is actually going to tell us right now, that what you learn from this is that benisa, a fish that's sold in the marketplace based on weight, a karsa, according to its belly, tikla is its weight. Meaning if it has a large belly, the weight is going to be way more, which the Gemara says, lamaynaf, what's the relevancy of that? Lamekachamemker, for purchasing and for selling. If you see a fish that has a large belly, don't buy it based on weight, only if you first take out the intestines, because or else it's going to weigh more. You're going to get less fish, but more weight, which that relates to what Taisus says regarding the fetus, that there's a lot of blood over there, and the fetus weighs more than actually, and that's what Taisus, depends on Taisus' girsa, he has different girsa, but I'll upon him that the fetus on the inside is actually more than the fetus on the outside. So the menika is actually possibly less weight than, even though it's two bodies, than the muberes, because muberes has not just the fetus, but also a fetus with blood and everything, and it's heavier weight. So that's the chiddush of the muberes. Thank you to any time for hosting us.